Texas, they've got Attorney General Ken Paxton. This is a guy who has been under criminal indictment for securities fraud for 7 years. They're trying to put him in prison, and he's been able to hold it off as Attorney General for the state. He's been able to hold off this investigation. He's pulling a brilliant Trump for 7 years. But in the meantime, what he's trying to do is set it up so that in Texas there will never be a Democrat elected. And as the Attorney General, he's the chief law enforcement officer in the state. ProPublica just published, just this morning, just a breathtaking study on this. It's titled, "They Were Trying to Help Run Elections, Then They Got Criminally Investigated." And it's telling the story of these 10 people that, so far, that Ken Paxton has gone after. For example, when an unmasked poll watcher named Jennifer Fleck began photographing the counting of ballots, which was against the rules, a volunteer asked her to leave. Fleck refused, then began screaming and banging on the window of the room where the votes were being counted. The volunteer who asked her to leave was a person by the name of Dana DeBovier. Ultimately, the police arrived and arrested Fleck and charged her with criminal trespass. But weeks later, the county attorney contacts DeBovier, and tells her that Ken Paxton is going to prosecute. And sure enough, the next year, Paxton tried to prosecute DeBovier for obstructing a poll watcher. This person who came in without a mask and was screaming and pounding on the windows and making a scene. The Attorney General tried to prosecute this just random volunteer who had said, "Yeah, I'll work the polls." Brought her case before a grand jury. Now, it costs a fortune to hire a good criminal defense lawyer if you're being dragged before a grand jury. This broke this person. And they did it not in Harris County where the crime happened and where DeBovier lives. They did it in another right-wing suburban county to get a right-wing jury pool for the grand jury. And in April of last year, that grand jury, having heard all the evidence, said, well, she didn't do anything wrong. And this is what's happened in 10 of these cases now where Ken Paxton has tried to prosecute election officials. And so you get these things where, like, Liz Avor, who was a volunteer, she says, this is another volunteer, Eichson, says, "I have 4 kids. There could have been cops coming to my door to cuff me and take me away. I'm not going to volunteer to help at another election." So who is? The right-wing fascists in Texas. I mean, this is nuts. And then they're collaborating with Paxton. In 2020, Cynthia Brem, was running for chair of the Bexar County Republican Party. She lost in a landslide. She filed a complaint with Paxton's office about the election, and Paxton opened a criminal investigation. And then, even though she lost by 32 points, as party chair, she was the one who had to certify the results. And she said, "I can't certify these results. There's an open criminal investigation by our Attorney General." At least 3 suspects, according to ProPublica, at least 3 suspects in Paxton's investigations were the top election officials in their counties. But they've also gotten a whole bunch of volunteers. But they want to get these election officials who are dedicated to free and fair and honest elections out of the way and replace them with fascist toadies who will do what Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton want. Officials have resigned en masse as conspiracy theories and physical threats have increased. Over the last 2 years, ProPublica notes, roughly a third of Texas's election administrators have left their posts. About half of these suspects, by the way, were people in their 60s and 70s who are having to come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars for legal expenses because they're being prosecuted by the Attorney General of Texas.